So do as I say, not as I do. So the big problem here is when you go to sorting is, and this is where I think ranchers really need to train their cattle to stop. It's really easy to teach cattle like these to go, but getting them to stop. So when you step in front of them, they'll run you over. And once they start, like this calf here, she don't stop. And now I have a hard time stopping. Now what do? And I got to use too much. Then I jump in front of them. And now the big problem is, so they're coming by you too bad. So you use your paddle or your stick or whatever, and you jump in front of these cattle about 4 times. When this one starts back, I turn her back. Now she won't come out. Now she's afraid to come by me. So then I have to get too deep in the bunch, and I get too far down, and then cattle start getting by me. So I'm not sure with your sorting, and especially maybe if you do some pre-sorts, I'm not so sure it wouldn't be a good idea if you got a large number of cattle to let those cattle down the alley. If they don't want to go by you, and this is kind of a call, if they don't want to go by you, step in and just let them go by you. Let them go by you and then come back. So they learn to come past you. If they're too wild and you can't get them stopped, I'd take them about halfway down the alley, stop and turn them back a couple of times. And I'm not sure, and this is a call, nobody thinks they have the time to do this. Yet we'll let 4 or 5 head of cattle get by us, and we have to go resort them out of the whole bunch. And we think we're saving time because we're busy. And the way to kind of look at that is okay, I go to the grocery store with my wife. And I don't want to go in because I don't like going in the grocery store. So I sit in the car. And I'm looking at people, and for a little bit, and then pretty soon I'm thinking, what the hell is she doing in there? And I think, wow, she must be buying the whole store. And pretty soon I'm mad because I'm tired of sitting there doing nothing. So the next time I go in with her, and it doesn't seem like we did anything. It took the same amount of time, maybe more, because I was buying more because I'm hungry. But it didn't seem like it took any time at all because I was doing something. So a lot of times we think we're doing a lot, and we are. But is it really better? Are we really getting more done quicker? So that's something to think about. Sorting is a place where a lot of people, I think maybe a lot of injuries happen because we're hurried, and we call things late, and we throw gates, and we cause problems. There is nothing wrong, and this is against the cowboy code, and this is one of the biggest struggles I have. There is nothing wrong with letting an animal go by you. It's okay. It's way better than getting your hip kicked or knocking a hip down on a critter. And just go back and get them. But if you get them trained a little bit better before you start, that might make things work a lot better. One thing that I'm kind of having an issue with, I don't know the answer, like taking cattle up into a tight spot. Like say you're going to process some cattle and you have a tub or a bud box or a V or whatever. Using block gates, that's a real good thing. So we're coming up this alley and I throw a block gate, but really we've all heard about shadows and the things they cause or differences in lights. Well, that's true. A shadow will stop an animal if there's no pressure on them. But if you've got pressure, if you're coming on behind them and they're thinking about you, they don't even see the shadow. And you get over that shadow and they don't stop or balk on you. So you gotta figure out, and here's what I kind of think, if you gotta work on the personality of the person. If they're a timid person, they don't know how to put pressure on and get them over that shadow or through that light, then you better use block gates all the way. But if they're experienced and know how to handle cattle, maybe just keep that pressure on. By the time you stop and shut the block gate, your cattle are already turned back on you. But that's a tough call. Going into a tub. I use a lot of tubs, and I try to never use the back gate on a tub unless the cattle are real wild and going to turn back on me, because I think when you stop and reach back and get that gate, then the cattle turn right around and they're looking at you by the time you bring the gate back in. A A lot of times if I keep that pressure and keep that eye, they never even think about stopping because I got too much pressure on them. And this is where I think it's important to learn how to put a lot of pressure on at the right time. But if you put too much pressure on, it's like trying to fill a flour sack or something. You put too much too fast, it's going to spill out. So with your employees, new ones, experienced ones, I think the thing is taking the time to learn and train. Not on the job on the sale day, but getting them learned and experienced. And people are just like cattle. The more pressure you put on them sometimes, the more confused they get. I'm trying to learn Spanish. I thought that was funny the day when I was watching the presentation. They said bilingual. I was thinking, oh, Spanish. I don't think that's Spanish you guys are talking about, was it? So I'm trying to learn how to speak Spanish because I like to eat in Mexican restaurants, and I like to talk to them pretty little girls that work in the Mexican restaurants. And so sometimes when you say some words to them, they think you know how to speak Spanish, and they start speaking to you real fast. And that don't work. And then if you get confused or somebody gets mad and they start yelling in Spanish, if you don't understand Spanish and somebody yells at you louder, it doesn't make you understand it anymore. And that's the way sometimes with our employees or our cattle. So anyway, that's some thoughts. Anything anybody wants to kind of do here or see?
What's your best tactic for these cows and calves? Say you got 20 or 30 in a bunch, and all they do is they go to the end of the alley and stick their nose in the corner, and you can't get them out of there until the whole damn works comes out of there.
Yeah.
That's a big problem sometimes with certain different kinds of cattle it is.
Sure. Yeah, cows and calves or whatever. One of the reasons cattle don't want to come out of a corner, and I didn't understand this until I was working in an auction market, and I sometimes we do a demonstration in the ring, and I tried for half an hour this it was in Texas, and it was this Brahma cross calf, and I couldn't get it to turn away from me coming across the right. It wouldn't come out of the corner. He'd always turn into me and run by me. He would not switch eyes. He wouldn't go from the left eye to the right eye. So, but we can't train these cattle to do that. They've been trained not to do that. What I try to do with cattle is I try to use my wild cattle, and I try to get them to, you can get the cattle that can't take your pressure, you can actually cause them to bring the cattle out of the corner. If they're all wild, then you can't, I think you got to step up on the fence and go halfway up them or something. I understand. They're going to come out anyway, right? He sure does. And that's where I think maybe we have to do that training, where we get them to come by us once or twice. I don't know.
It's a problem every time.
It's
certain cattle, especially certain people, are all the same way.
certain people's cattle. They are. What you're doing is you're trying to work too many cattle at once, I think. You probably have to split those bunches up. Yeah, I mean, and
sometimes one have to even happen with only 10 or 15 or 20 in a bunch.
Yep.
You know, and that's not a very big bunch. They still do the same thing. They'll plow into that corner, and you can't hurt about them with a stick of dynamite.
That's right. And I'm not, at home or on the ranch, I don't sort cattle in an alley. I'd rather sort cattle out of a pen, like right there. I think you have a lot better chance of sorting cattle right there, because you can step back into the gate, send, or you can bring cattle right around to you. You see what I'm saying? And maybe those cattle that really have a heart, because the reason they don't want to come by you is they're afraid to go by you. They're wild, and they don't want to have to come by you and leave you for a minute. That's why they don't want to come by you. So a bigger pen where they have a little more room to make that circle, maybe that'll work. Smaller bunches. I understand. Yeah, I'm kind of like those guys this morning. I might not have an answer for you on everything. Yeah, well, I do. And everything's not going to work perfect. And so there's going to be a pen sometimes not. Sometimes we're going to have to walk up the fence and bring them by us a couple times. Maybe just shut all those sort gates and at least get them where they can come by us. And I don't know, but just to keep doing the same thing and fight and get run over or kicked, or, you know, when cattle get to climbing on each other, that's when they really get panicky. Yep. And you know, this is where these alleys here, what are these, 12-foot alleys probably? 12s or 14s? I really think it's, especially for those large